Rome looked powerful. From the outside, it was unstoppable. Massive armies, endless land, wealth flowing in from every direction. But underneath, it was collapsing. Not from war, not from enemies, but from something far more dangerous: debt. Imagine this. You borrow money just to survive: food, land, shelter. But you can't pay it back. So they take your land. Now you have nothing. So you borrow again. And suddenly, you're trapped. That was Rome. Farmers lost everything. Soldiers came home from war, only to find their homes gone, families broken, lives destroyed. And the worst part? The system was working exactly how it was designed, because the elite, the ones in power, were the ones collecting the debt. So while everyone else was falling apart, they were getting richer, stronger, more powerful. No one was fixing it because the people who could fix it benefited from it. That's when one man saw the flaw: Julius Caesar. He didn't just see a crisis, he saw an opportunity. He understood something simple. When people are desperate enough, they stop caring about rules. They stop caring about systems. They just want relief. And whoever gives them that becomes powerful. So Caesar made a choice. He didn't side with the elite. He sided with the people. He promised them land, debt relief, stability. And suddenly, everything changed. Because now, the people weren't loyal to Rome anymore. They were loyal to him. And that's where power really comes from. Not titles, not positions, loyalty. But Rome already had powerful people, and they weren't going to give it up. So they tried to control him. They sent him away, to war, far from Rome. They thought distance would weaken him, make him irrelevant. They were wrong, because war didn't weaken Caesar, it transformed him. In Gaul, he didn't just fight, he dominated. Battle after battle, victory after victory. But the real power wasn't the land he gained, it was the loyalty he built. His soldiers didn't just follow him, they believed in him. They would die for him. And that's when he became dangerous. Because now he didn't just have influence, he had an army. And an army loyal to a man is more powerful than an army loyal to a system. Back in Rome, the elite saw what was happening, and they panicked. Because Caesar wasn't just rising, he was replacing them. So they made their move. They ordered him to return. But there was a condition: give up your army, give up your power, come back alone. On the surface, it sounded fair, but Caesar knew the truth. If he returned like that, he wouldn't just lose power, he would lose everything. So he stood at a river, the Rubicon, small, quiet. But crossing it meant war. It meant there was no going back. And for a moment, he hesitated, because this was the point of no return. Then he stepped forward, and in that moment, Rome changed forever. He marched on the city. No real resistance, because the system was already broken, and broken systems collapse fast. He took control, but here's where it gets interesting. He didn't destroy Rome. He fixed it. He reduced debt, gave land to the poor, created jobs, stabilized the economy. For the first time in years, things worked. People had food, security, hope. And that's what made him unstoppable. Because when people feel safe, they stop questioning power. But the elite saw something else. They saw a man becoming too powerful, too loved, too untouchable. And Rome had one rule: no kings. So they made a decision. If they couldn't control him, they would remove him. Not publicly, quietly. And here's the twist. Some of the men planning his death were his closest allies, men he trusted, men he protected. And on the Ides of March, they struck 23 times. Not because he failed, but because he succeeded too well. And here's the final truth. They didn't kill a dictator. They killed the system that allowed them to stay in power. Because after Caesar, Rome would never go back. It would only move forward into something bigger, an empire. And it all started with a broken system. He wasn't born powerful. He wasn't rich. He didn't inherit anything. He started with nothing. Genghis Khan. No safety, no protection, no future. As a child, his father was poisoned, and just like that, everything collapsed. His family was abandoned, cast out, left to starve in the open wilderness. Imagine being a child with no food, no home, no one to protect you. That was his reality. And in that kind of world, you don't learn comfort. You learn one thing: survival. But surviving wasn't enough for him, because surviving means you're always one step away from losing everything again. So instead of just surviving, he decided to take control. But here's the problem. He was alone, weak, outnumbered, and the world around him, it was chaos. The Mongol tribes weren't united, they were divided, constantly fighting each other. Small groups, endless conflict, no structure, no system. And that might sound strong, but it's not, because division is the biggest weakness of all. And he saw that. He understood something early. When people are divided and you can unite them, you become unstoppable. So he started small. He didn't try to control everything at once. He built loyalty, not through fear at first, but through something far more powerful: fairness. He promoted people based on skill, not family, which doesn't sound revolutionary today, but back then, it changed everything. Because suddenly, even the weakest person had a chance to rise. And when people believe they have a future, they fight harder, they stay loyal, they follow you. And that's exactly what happened. His group grew, then it became a tribe, then it became something more, an army. And once he had that, everything changed. Because now he wasn't just surviving, he was building power. Then came the turning point. He didn't just defend his group, he expanded it. He began conquering other tribes, and his method was simple. If you resist, you're destroyed. If you surrender, you join him. No middle ground, no second chances. Brutal, but effective. Because word spread fast, and fear moves faster than anything else. Soon, entire tribes stopped fighting him, not because they couldn't win, but because they didn't want to lose everything. And one by one, he united them. Not peacefully, but completely. And that's when everything changed. Because now he didn't just have followers, he had a system, a structure, an army built for one purpose: speed. He reorganized everything: units, command, communication. His army moved faster than anyone else, struck harder, and disappeared before enemies could react. They weren't just strong, they were unpredictable, and that made them unstoppable. Then he did something no one expected. He didn't just stop, he expanded. Beyond the tribes, beyond the land he knew, into cities, empires, civilizations. And everywhere he went, the result was the same: victory. Cities fell, walls collapsed, armies were crushed, and sometimes entire populations disappeared, because his strategy wasn't just to win battles, it was to end resistance completely. And that's what made him terrifying, because he didn't just defeat you, he made sure no one would ever try again. But here's the twist. He wasn't just destroying, he was building something bigger. Trade routes expanded across his empire. Goods moved faster than ever before. Ideas spread. Cultures connected. He created systems, laws, order. And for the first time, massive parts of the world were connected under one rule. That's what made him different. He didn't just conquer the world, he reshaped it. But there's something deeper here, something most people miss. His power didn't come from strength alone, it came from understanding people. He knew fear controls behavior, but opportunity creates loyalty, and he used both at the same time.
fear to dominate, opportunity to unite, and that combination is almost impossible to stop. Because if people fear you, they won't fight, and if they believe in you, they'll follow. And once you have both, you don't just have power, you have control. And that's how a boy who started with nothing became one of the most powerful men in history, not by inheriting power, not by being chosen, but by creating it from nothing.
Germany wasn't just losing, it was broken. After the World War I, everything collapsed. The economy failed, jobs disappeared, savings became worthless. People who once lived normal lives were now struggling just to survive. Imagine waking up and the money you worked your whole life for can't even buy food. That was Germany. Anger spread, frustration grew, and worst of all, people felt lost because when everything falls apart, people don't just lose money, they lose meaning. And when people feel that way, they start searching for answers, for someone to blame, for someone to follow. That's where one man stepped in, Adolf Hitler. But here's what made him different. He didn't start with power. He didn't have an army. He didn't control the system. He had something else, words. And words are more powerful than people think, because words don't just communicate, they shape belief, and belief is where power begins. He stood in small rooms at first, talking to groups, not with facts, with emotion. He didn't explain problems, he simplified them, turned complex issues into clear enemies. And people listened, because simple answers feel right when everything else feels confusing. Then he did something even more powerful. He gave people a story, not about what was happening, but why it was happening. And once people believe a story, they stop questioning it. They defend it. They spread it. And slowly, that story grew. From small rooms to large crowds, from whispers to rallies, and with every speech, his influence grew. But here's the twist. He didn't take power by force. He built it, step by step, election by election, speech by speech, until one day he had enough support to take control legally. Think about that. He wasn't forced into power. He was chosen. And that's what makes this so dangerous, because it proves something most people don't want to believe. Sometimes people give power away, not because they're weak, but because they're desperate. And once he had power, everything changed, because influence gets you in, but control keeps you there. So he moved fast. Opposition was removed, critics silenced, media controlled. And suddenly, the system that was meant to protect people was being used to control them. And here's the most important part. He didn't break the system. He used it. Laws, rules, structures, all turned into tools. And once that happens, it's very hard to stop, because everything looks legal. Everything looks normal. But underneath, everything is controlled. And that's the most dangerous kind of power, the kind that doesn't look like power, the kind people don't question until it's too late. Because by the time people realized what was happening, it was already locked in, and reversing it was almost impossible. But there's a deeper lesson here. This didn't start with power. It started with emotion, fear, anger, desperation. And when those emotions are strong enough, people don't just listen, they believe. And when belief spreads, power follows. That's what made him so effective. He didn't control people physically at first. He controlled how they thought. And once you control that, everything else becomes easier, because people don't resist what they believe is right. And that's the most dangerous form of control in history. Not force, not violence, belief.